Let's talk about icons. There's not very many people in your lifetime that transcend multiple industries. There are athletes, there have been coaches, there have been media people, but not very many though. But if you just take the sports spectrum, those that transcend their sport, those are few and far between. They really are. I would argue, I feel free to disagree, but I would argue that there's just a few that belong on that list. Muhammad Ali transcended boxing clearly. John Madden, that is a fascinating career that transcended multiple industries. There's a generation of people that know John Madden as the coach. There's a big generation of people that know John Madden only as the broadcaster. And there's, of course, an entire generation that only knows the video game. O.J. Simpson. I know it's not cool, but O.J. Simpson transcended sport. O.J. Simpson was one of the best players of his era, one of the best players of all time, but the reality is he also became a hugely successful spokesperson. Really, for the most part, the first African-American spokesperson that really, transcended mainstream. It went into mainstream America, unlike any other athlete. So I know then of course he became famous for other reasons and now is dead, but you get the story. Michael Jordan, I would say to a much lesser degree, he's an icon because he's the greatest to ever play a team sport. He's an icon because, sports first billionaire, all that stuff. But he was a successful pitch person. But I don't think he transcended multiple industries the way some others have. One of the most interesting careers in sports, one of the most interesting careers by itself, one of the most interesting careers in business, and one of the most interesting careers in pop culture died over the weekend. Most people don't even know the sports side. But there's very few athletes that ever had a reinvention much like this guy. Yeah. If you happen to know the sports side, the boxing side later in life, it's a completely different storyline. It's a completely different narrative, completely different character altogether than the first generation of the boxer. You know the Pitchman, though. You do. You grew up with him. So one of the most famous pitchman, certainly of the 90s, easily the 90s, mid-90s for sure. So think about this guy's career. I mean, it's remarkable when you walk through it. He's a high school dropout in segregated East Texas, wins a gold medal at the age of 18 or 19, is a heavyweight champion in boxing more than once, in multiple decades, when boxing mattered. And that's an important carve out here. It used to matter a lot. It used to be the biggest thing going. And he was involved in the biggest fights on the planet. Okay, then he became a pastor. Then he became heavyweight champ again, the oldest heavyweight champ ever. And he did it to raise money for his church that he started up in like a strip mall somewhere. And then became one of the most likable characters. And that's probably what a lot of people above the age of, if you're younger than 65 or so, all you really know is the lovable character of the 90s. And he really was, by many measurements, the most successful pitch person of all time. And my favorite part is he had 5 sons, all named George. Yeah, not George the Fifth or George the Eighth or whatever. That's a George. George Foreman died over the weekend. I think he was only 76, which is hard to believe because that is a youthful looking guy for all those years, the face and the smile that you knew. But there are so many different storylines to George Foreman. ESPN, again, most of you only know the Pitchman. There's a whole backstory to this guy that is dark and twisted and fascinating.
It's almost like there were 2 George Foremans. There was the guy who played the heavy, really, the villain against Muhammad Ali and Zaire a half a century ago. Let's talk about that guy first. Tell us about the young George Foreman.
Well, if you look at boxing as a continuum, he was somewhere between, he was the scary guy. So he's between Sonny Liston and Mike Tyson. And, Joe Frazier was about as tough a guy who's ever laced up gloves. He put him down 6 times. And I think that really crystallized Foreman's reputation as invincible. Everybody, who's going to put down Joe Frazier 6 times? And it set up the Rumble in the Jungle, arguably as famous a fight as ever there was for Ali, which of course left Foreman, I think, psychiatrically scarred. He was the bully who was undone against Ali, and it was probably Ali's finest moment. It was what he did in the rope-a-dope was pretty much improvisational, and it tested his courage, and it tested everyone's limits. And watching this, how long can Ali do this? And then, of course, you saw what happened. He turned it all around on the bully. What's different about Foreman than perhaps anyone else is the idea you cited before of reinventing yourself. It's uniquely American, but it's never been done this way in boxing. It wasn't just coming back as a preacher and a pitchman and selling hamburgers or grills or whatever it was. It was more purposeful than any of us knew as far as boxing. The previous oldest heavyweight champion.
That most of you are thinking, well, I don't even know that boxing stuff. Right. That's exactly right. I mean, he was Mike Tyson, the villain, the mean guy, the brutish guy before Mike Tyson. Right. And then all right, most people, all is that smiling George Foreman who became just a business titan. So he was the villain when boxing mattered. He went from the mean, surly guy that everybody disliked to one of the most likable public characters with one of the best smiles and funny demeanors of anybody in pop culture. An entire generation only knows George Foreman selling grills with the apron, right? That's all most people know. Who didn't have and doesn't have, I don't even know how long they last. Who doesn't have a George Foreman grill, right?
My buddy still has one.
Hey, most people do.
Yep.
Most people have multiple. I always think of business stories like this. Like this is when you just break it down to real simple terms. Stop and think, how many Apple products are in your house? Okay, we don't have that many grills, but I'll bet you there was a time when most people had at least one George Foreman grill. And he sold it. Remember the days when, what was it, QVC and that's, remember the days that's how you bought stuff? Remember that? I mean, the timing of George Foreman's smile, the timing of reinventing himself. Remember, he's going to box again, okay? He's going to box at 45. But the timing of QVC, George Foreman's smiling face, and that grill. I can't say, because I know nothing about this stuff, I can't say it's the best ever. Just something about it sold like crazy. It was simple, it was easy, and by the way, you trusted George Foreman, right? I bet you in 1995, if you'd done a poll of the American public, George Foreman might have been the most trusted figure there was. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't know who else it would have been. MC Hammer? So smiling George Foreman. Here's the fighting part of this. He lost his first title fight to Muhammad Ali, Rumble in the Jungle in 1974. I barely remember hearing about this as a small child. But there was a time. Ali fights, Mike Tyson fights were legendary in the United States. Mike Tyson fights were stop what you're doing and watch fights in this country. Muhammad Ali was the most popular, polarizing figure on the planet. But those fights resonated around the world. And George Foreman was supposed to go in and destroy him. This guy, if you go back and look, the story becomes bigger since he died this weekend. Go back and look at the guy. He was jacked. He was the anti-Ali in every way. He had 76 wins, 68 knockouts. That's double what Muhammad Ali had. He lost 5 fights in his entire career. He won his first heavyweight championship in 73. He did it again in 1994 at the age of 45. He won a heavyweight gold medal and the 68 Olympics, blah, blah, blah. You get all that stuff. He came out of retirement in I think it was the late 80s. And he eventually, I think, lost to Evander Holyfield in 1991. There's a name you didn't think of. He knocked out Michael Moore to become the oldest heavyweight champion at the age of 45. So he's selling grills. Now, granted, boxing at this point is nothing like boxing in the days of Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, and Foreman in his prime. All that stuff. Boxing is just it's glorified wrestling at this point. But he'd won a bunch of fights. I mean, he eventually got knocked out by Evander Holyfield and lasted 12 rounds, which was unheard of at the time. But then that's not the real story, is it? It's not really what you care about. That's not what you know George Foreman for. That's why I compare him to someone like John Madden, right? John Madden, to many of us, to our parents, or maybe even grandparents, you knew John Madden when he was coaching the Raiders, when the Raiders mattered, which is a whole foreign concept by itself, right? There's generations that have grown up and the Raiders suck. But there was a time when the Raiders were the ultimate bad boy icon, and there's John Madden, a total mess. So there's people that know John Madden, the famous coach. Then there's, of course, people, most of us who grew up with him as the iconic broadcaster. The guy defined being a color analyst. And then, of course, there's generations of 15 to 30-somethings that only know the video game. George Foreman's like that, right? I mean, he's crossed so many different industries in so many different ways. And to reinvent yourself, coming from a sport like boxing, right? I mean, nobody's a pitchman at boxing. Nobody. You can't. You're kind of a messed up human being. Not George Foreman. Okay, so Jeff, are we going to go back in time? Yeah, we're going to go back in time. You're going to buy some George Foreman grills.
It's a special TV offer from the king of the grill, George Foreman.
My lean, fat-reducing grilling machine with built-in bun warmer delivers great-tasting grilled food in minutes. Best of all, it knocks out the fat.
The bun warmers heat rolls, biscuits, muffins, meats, and vegetables grilled perfectly. The patented sloped grill channels grease and liquids away from the food into the grease tray.
My grill is perfect for breakfast. Grilled sausage and bacon. Use the bun warmer for corn biscuits or blueberry muffins. For lunch, try chicken breast on a hot bun for a mouth-watering sandwich.
Perfect.
There's nothing better than a juicy steak served on sourdough bread for a feast fit for a king. And if you love seafood, try my grill for shrimp and salmon with warm crescent rolls.
So many colors. There's a perfect grill for every family. So amazing, you'll even want to take them on vacation.
No dorm should be without my grill. It's great for that late-night snack.
Now, knock out the fat but lock in the flavor. With double-coated non-stick grilling surface, cleanup is a breeze.
My grill is so fast. Your food is ready in minutes. Plus, the built-in bun warmer is great for warm, delicious rolls. You get all the flavor and you knock out the fat.
Now, order the George Foreman grill with spatula, 2 grease trays, and bun warmer in your choice of colors for $19.99.
Oh,
on the special TV
Right.
offer, you get a second grill at the same great price.
There's
and we'll
more.
pay the shipping for both grills. You'll also get the Lean Mean Grilling Machine cookbook
but
with hundreds of delicious recipes that
there's
knock out
more.
the fat. And you get a $20 certificate for George Foreman steaks and more. You get it all. An $80 value, just $39.98. We're so sure you're
calling.
going to love them, we'll even pay
Brandon,
for shipping.
call them.
And tell them the king of the grill sent you. Call now.
I love those infomercials. For those who don't know, I'm a student of infomercials. They make me happy. That guy's voice, he must have done 7 million infomercials. But wait, there's more. And then, man, you add something. I didn't know that George Foreman grills had they were colored. Red, blue, yellow, man. And then my favorite of the old school infomercials is not just George Foreman. Every one of them had this template. So I got to believe somewhere some dude produced all these. They would have like the host and they'd show the grill and play that cheesy porn sounding music. Then in the corner, they always worked in usually it was like an old person. But there they are. Someone in the little corner of the screen is trying the product and smiling like crazy. It's like every one of those infomercials of the 90s had the same formula. And this one has this old lady up in the corner. And there she is with total blank screen, right? She takes a bite of that burger and then she just starts smiling. But wait, there's more. All right, what's next? What's George selling us now?
And the taste of new Doritos now with more natural cheese flavor. George Foreman V, George IV,
Crunchy.
George III,
Cheesier.
George Jr.,
It's a mucho macho nacho.
and the original George.
I was robbed.
Conclusive proof, 4 out of 5 George Foremans prefer the taste of new Doritos tortilla chips with more natural cheese flavor.
Who taught you kids how to eat like this?
You, Dad.
Look, if we had a focus group of the age group, what do we think it would be? 30 to 65 or so? I put a focus group together, male, female, all ages. Everybody is smiling. The dude such a remarkable, I go back and I watch a lot of old boxing matches just because I used to like old boxing. But that guy I told you, he was Mike Tyson before Mike Tyson. He was so angry. And then you see him in infomercials, he's one of the happiest people. Like, there's nobody that makes you giggle more than George Foreman did. He just sold it like crazy. And you can't beat the fact that all of his kids were named George. I like it. How did he do? I saw an interview with him over the weekend. And, this is a guy that dropped out of high school. He was robbing stores somewhere in East Texas. And he explained, he said, he got a phone call from his agent or something. Hey, they're going to pay you X amount of dollars to sell the grills and do the commercials. And then eventually they said, why don't you just partner with these and you own them yourself? All right. How about this? In 1999, he sold the commercial rights to the George Foreman grill for $140 million. He sold more than 100 million George Foreman grills. And I got to believe the markup on those is, what'd they say? You got all of it in the bun warmers. My man, they really sold the heck out of that bun warmer. It took the price up to $39.95. I like the fact that I'm guessing George made a lot of money off those. And then there's this part at 45 years old. And this was I didn't like this. I know most of the fights at that point in his life were setups, but he was fat and didn't really train. I thought, oh man, this is, look, here's a guy. Not that boxing deserves any sort of honor at all, but it felt pretty cheesy. But at 45 years old, 299 days, he became heavyweight champion of the world, the oldest man to hold boxing's greatest prize. Use that term loosely. So I don't know. Where do you want to put him as an icon? I mean, again, those icons, the way I think we have to look at these icons, and there's so few of them, they are a part of your life even when you're not a sports nerd. They're part of your life. You grow up with them in multiple ways. And these guys, George Foreman, John Madden, again, I think they almost separate themselves. Ali as well, but Ali wasn't a commercial success like these guys. But John Madden and George Foreman are like the life story of multiple generations. It's what you grew up with. It's what you knew.